Welcome back to the third hour of our program. On the line with us is Neil King Jr. He's the former national political reporter and editor at the Wall Street Journal, a contributor to the New York Times and the Atlantic. Neil won a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of 9/11. And his first book was just blurbed by Ken Burns. It's titled American Ramble, A Walk of Memory and Renewal. And N. King of D.C. is his Twitter handle, by the way. Neil and NeilKingJR.com is his website. Neil, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Nice to be here.
Great to have you with us. This is an absolutely fascinating kind of look at America as you're traveling from New York to D.C. First of all, what provoked you to do this? It seems kind of eccentric, is the word?
It was a little eccentric. You know, it's funny. It started originally just as a wacky idea that kind of made most people recoil at the mere thought of walking up to New York from Washington. Most people, of course, had some vision of walking up I-95 along the Jersey Turnpike. And it just germinated over the years. Like, gosh, I wonder how would a pedestrian fit into that landscape? And I put a lot of thought into how the old timers, you know, going back centuries did it, what the postal route was, what route, you know, George Washington took. And when he went for his inauguration from Mount Vernon, which is actually not that far from my house, to Manhattan. And then it just kind of spun on from there in terms of focusing on the whole story that really can be told in so many ways between those two cities. And then, you know, the end of March 2 years ago, 2021, you might recall, we thought that the whole COVID thing was over. A lot of us were getting vaccinated. The numbers were falling fast. And I walked out my door on the 29th of March into this spring, and I took off. It took 26 days, 330 miles, and I took a much more circuitous route. Mm-hmm. But it was, just to go back to your first, eccentric point, a plan that left a lot of people scratching their heads. And then as it began to unfold, I think a lot of people came to realize that there was a little magic in it.
There you go. Yeah, sorry, I got the direction wrong. You're from D.C. to New York. So what were the main things you learned as a result of this?
You know, the ambition from the outset was to really, we can never clear our mind entirely and walk out the door with as though you've never seen this territory kind of thing. But that was something approaching my desire, was to go out with just an open mind, put aside all the, I guess you could call them abstractions that people feud and fight over on their computer screens and that dominate the news, and really just look at the world that was going to, unroll and emerge in front of me, both the natural world and, the historical world, the people I was going to meet. And that phenomenon in its own right was just really interesting. I didn't fill my ears with, manufactured noises, whether it be music or podcasts or any of that. I just went to pay attention and, see how the cities were designed and the look of the houses, particularly the old settlements. And it was really, really a fascinating up close kind of geographical look at our history. I called it American history at 3 miles an hour, kind of ambulatory history. And, it was kind of miraculous in a lot of ways.
Were you successful in disconnecting from the political Sturm und Drang that seems to have seized the nation?
Yeah, entirely. That is, after all, a matter of choice. And it's worth noting just that I was originally planning to walk out my door the 29th of March of 2020. As you might know, some things got in everybody's way to prevent us from doing that kind of thing.
Right.
So I booted the whole thing to a year later. And in the span of that year, everything that was unimaginable happened. More than 1 million of Americans were killed by the virus, the killing of George Floyd, the social justice protests, the riots, the tearing down of statues, the huge debate about our origins as a nation, who we honor, who we don't honor, the election and all the disputes around that. As I I wouldn't even say joked, but it became, and that's kind of where we are now, like what truths do we all hold to be self-evident at this point, truly across, a large swath of the population. So, and 9 blocks from my house, and I even was up there on January 6th, watching a lot of that craziness unfold. There had been a siege of the Capitol. So when I left my house and walked up that direction, I walked past a Capitol that was ringed by fencing and razor wire. And, there were a lot of who would ever have thunk it kind of things that I was walking into. So it was a lot to ponder. I didn't need to be looking at more of it on my phone or whatever to have plenty to think about.
How did you initiate interactions with people along the way, and what did you learn from that, as opposed to viewing historical sites or experiencing the joys of being out in nature and the rural stretches?
It was a mixture. I'm a journalist. I've been doing this kind of thing for years, including a lot of reporting overseas, and you get used to and good at just meeting people and encountering strangers. On the other hand, you also know that when you go out for a day or a week or multi-weeks of reporting, you're not going to leave everything to chance, because a lot of things might not fall into place. So I had done a lot of work in advance on the places that I wanted to go that I knew would have significance to me, and arranging to meet people, usually 1 or 2 people every day that were writers, historians, archaeologists, mayors, the whole gamut. And so I had people that I was going to meet that were relevant to me and significant, and added a lot of, grist along the way. And then there were just the really fascinating, bizarre encounters with people along the way that came out by chance. In a lot of ways, those were certainly among the most illuminating. And I could go on at length about individual of those encounters.
Well, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating book. The book is American Ramble: A Walk of Memory and Renewal by Neil King Jr., former national political reporter and editor with the Wall Street Journal, and contributor to the New York Times and the Atlantic. Neil King Jr. JR.com is the website. nking of D.C. is his Twitter handle. Neil, thanks for dropping by. Fascinating book.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was a fun time.
Good speaking with you. We'll be right back.